Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Every morning at exactly 5:30 a.m., while the streets of Manhattan were still plunged into darkness and the whisper of streetlights, Jeremiah Carter walked through the glass doors of the Sterling and Company Tower, the steel giant that dominated Lexington Avenue like a monument to the success of others. The lobby, with its polished marble floors, gleaming elevators, and wall-mounted screens showing stock market news, was still empty at that hour. Jeremiah, a tall, sturdy figure despite his years, walked steadily, soundlessly, like a familiar but invisible presence. He still wore the same crisp dark blue uniform, carefully pressed the day before in his small Bronx bedroom. He also wore his gray gloves, out of habit rather than necessity, a symbolic barrier between him and the world he served but didn't belong to. He began his tour on the 41st floor, the executive floor. There, he tended the thick carpets, the polished wooden desks, and the Italian leather armchairs. He emptied the baskets filled with hastily scribbled papers, wiped down the conference tables still laden with empty coffee cups and confidential files. He arranged the chairs with almost meticulous care, as if this invisible order were his own language. "Good morning, sir." "Morning, ma'am." Always the same tone, calm, respectful, never intrusive. The employees he passed, often the same ones he'd met for years, responded distractedly, if at all. To them, he was the janitor, the morning guy, sometimes even just a nod. They saw neither the man, nor the story, nor the dignity. Just a silhouette with a broom and a box of cleaning products. But what they didn't know was that Jeremiah was listening. Always. He understood everything. Absolutely everything. In meeting rooms, he vacuumed in the background while American executives negotiated with Russian partners. He grasped the subtleties of an exchange in Mandarin between two Asian leaders, observing the expressions, the unspoken words, the heavy silences. He understood every word spoken, every veiled tension, every polite lie. He was there, in every crisis. During the fraud scandal in 2015, during the failed merger in 2018, during the confidential data leaked the following year. Present, but never watched. Silent, but lucid. No one ever asked him what he thought, and he never offered it. This world wasn't meant for a man like him to speak out. He learned that early on. He had learned to become invisible, not out of shame, but out of survival. Jeremiah was born on the south side of Chicago, in a modest house with blue shutters, filled with books and gospel songs. His father, the Reverend Ezekiel Carter, preached every Sunday about the power of forgiveness and inner light. His mother, Maya, taught comparative literature at a public high school, quoting Toni Morrison and Gabriel Garcia Marquez with infectious passion. At the Carters, we spoke English, but also a little French, a little Swahili. We read international newspapers. We wrote poetry. We firmly believed in the power of education as a lever for advancement. Jeremiah was a child prodigy. At 19, he could already read Dostoevsky verbatim, respond in Japanese to a visiting professor, and debate geopolitics in classical Arabic. He was a fellow at Georgetown's Linguistics and International Relations Department, with a bright future ahead of him in the diplomatic sphere. He dreamed of working at the United Nations, becoming a peace interpreter, or an intercultural communications advisor. But everything collapsed in a flash. One day, as he was walking home, he was stopped by two officers. A simple identity check. He looked, from a distance, like a suspect in an armed robbery case. They wouldn't listen to his explanations. He was handcuffed, accused, incarcerated, a whole year in prison, without a firm conviction, awaiting a trial that never came. The evidence was ultimately invalidated, the error acknowledged, but the damage was done. The justice system hadn't asked him for his IQ or his educational qualifications. He had simply seen a young black man in the wrong place at the wrong time. Upon his release, life had turned its back on him. Major institutions didn't want an ex-convict, even one who had been cleared. He sent out more than 200 resumes, with no response. He eventually gave up. One day, he saw a small poster in a fast food restaurant. Janitor wanted for a company in Manhattan. Discretion required. He called. He was asked for little. The work was physical, repetitive, but honest. And above all, no one asked him any questions. Diplomas, dreams, languages? He kept them for himself, like a secret treasure that would never be stolen from him again. He found meaning in simple gestures, in the order he brought, in the calm of the early hours of the day. He still read, sometimes, in silence, books in Russian or Chinese during his lunch break. He mentally translated conversations as an exercise, not to shine, but to stay alive inside. Every morning, he entered that tower like a man no one saw. But he saw everything, and he forgot nothing. It was a Friday morning, but not like any other. On floor 41 of the Sterling and Company Tower, the hallways buzzed with electric tension. Everyone knew what was at stake. A strategic $300 million contract involving several consortiums from the Middle East, East Asia, and the European Union. This signing could propel the company into the big leagues, with expansion across 3 continents. Richard Hallberg, the CEO, a man in a tailored suit and a calculating gaze, paced the central conference room. Beside him, an army of professional translators, senior executives, and legal advisors crowded around long glass tables. Microphones, headsets, and visual aids were being tested. Everything had to be perfected. The future was being decided in the next few hours. But at 9:02 a.m., the alarm sounded. The simultaneous translation system breaks down. A short circuit in the main unit. The earpieces are no longer receiving anything. The engineer in charge, pale as a shadow, stammers out excuses. A replacement part would have taken 2 hours to arrive, far too late. In a few seconds, the translators, taken aback, confirm. Some speak Arabic, others Japanese, still others French or German, but no one covers all the necessary languages. In the large glass room, there's the elegant panic of the powerful, sharp whispers, nervous glances, hands on phones. Richard Hallberg grows angry, his jaw tightening. He glances at the delegations, already seated, patient but perplexed. Time is ticking. Sterling's credibility is wavering. And it is there, in the heart of this hushed chaos, that a soft and calm voice rises, almost unreal in the midst of the agitation. Mr. Hallberg, perhaps I can help. A brief silence precedes the heads turning, almost reluctantly. Jeremiah Carter, standing by the door, still holds his broom in his right hand. He hasn't removed his gray gloves. His dark blue uniform contrasts sharply with the tailored suits around him. His face is calm, his gaze direct. One of the young executives, too nervous to think, says with a condescending smile, "Help? You mean, clean the room faster?" Snickers erupt. We want to get rid of the embarrassment. But Jeremiah doesn't back down. He advances slowly, without arrogance, with that quiet assurance that disarms. "No, sir. I speak all the languages present today. I can provide live translation." A heavy silence falls. No one understands at first. The project manager raises his eyebrows. Another executive whispers, "Is he serious?" Hallberg stares at him, bewildered. Jeremiah takes a deep breath, then turns to the Gulf Council delegation. He bows his head slightly and says, in classical Arabic, with a fluid, elegant accent, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sterling and Company. It is a great honor to welcome you. I hope your trip was as pleasant as possible." The Arab dignitaries exchange a stunned look. Then one of them smiles, nods, and replies in Arabic, "Your accent is impeccable, better than some of our own interpreters." Without wasting a second, Jeremiah turns to the Chinese representatives. "We are very glad that you are here today. Our company is looking forward to this cooperation. We are very honored by your presence today. Our company looks forward to this cooperation." The official translator, present but powerless, lowers her eyes. Then comes German. "We look forward to a long-term collaboration with your group. Welcome to New York." The German representative, surprised, bursts out laughing. "He's the one you should hire as your international director." The meeting was a resounding success. Laughter, handshakes, and genuine smiles circulated through the room like breezes of fresh air. And at the center of all conversations was Jeremiah Carter. The customers, usually distant and formal, crowded around him. Some asked questions about his origins. Others clumsily tried to understand how a man of his caliber had escaped their radar. One of the Gulf ambassadors, impressed by his perfect command of literary Arabic, handed him his card. "We are looking for men like you, Mr. Carter. If you ever wish to work for our delegation in Washington, you will be welcome." Another, a Japanese cultural attaché, asked him if he would agree to participate in a language exchange program between the United Nations and several embassies. A group photo was proposed. Representatives from each continent crowded around Jeremiah. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled slightly. Flash. In the corridor, after the delegations had left, the employees spoke in low voices, as if a legend had just been born before their eyes. But who is he really? It seems like he speaks every language. But how is that possible? Did you see the way the minister greeted him? Like a diplomat, not a janitor. Secretaries, assistants, and junior executives had gathered around a mystery finally revealed. Many remembered Jeremiah cleaning the offices, silent, discreet, greeting politely without imposing. Some suddenly felt ashamed. In his office, CEO Richard Hallberg slowly twisted his ring around his finger. He had witnessed the entire scene. He had heard the compliments. He had seen, for the first time, the entire room looking at Jeremiah not as a shadowy employee, but as a man of light. He called him. Jeremiah entered calmly, without arrogance. He had removed his gloves, but was still wearing his work clothes. "Sit down, Jeremiah." The silence was thick. "Why did you never tell us you had these skills?" Jeremiah looked him straight in the eyes. His voice was calm, and that of a man who had nothing left to prove. "I did it. 3 times. Years ago. I was told my place was in the hallways, not in meetings. So I stopped pushing." A long silence fell. Hallberg didn't look away. It was as if he were hearing, for the first time, the echoes of the decisions he hadn't made. He nodded slowly, then said simply, "I'm sorry." The next day, a general meeting was called. Every employee was present, from senior executives to administrative assistants. The purpose of the meeting hadn't been specified, but a rumor was already circulating. Richard Hallberg spoke alone, without notes. His voice trembled slightly, something no one had ever seen in him. "There are talents we don't see, until the day they save us. Sterling and Company can no longer afford to ignore the treasures it has right in front of us." Effective immediately, Mr. Jeremiah Carter is appointed Director of Cultural and Linguistic Affairs for our group. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Some applauded timidly. Others nodded with sudden respect. But Hallberg wasn't finished. "We're also going to launch a vocational rehabilitation program designed to give former inmates with degrees a real chance. Too many smart people are being left behind. Jeremiah has shown us what we risk losing when we judge based on appearance or origins." A week later, the conference room, bathed in light, was full. Executives were awaiting the arrival of the new director. When he entered, dressed in a sober, perfectly tailored suit, a respectful silence fell. Everyone stood up, not out of obligation, out of instinct. Jeremiah walked calmly forward, placed a leather briefcase on the table, and then went to the large bay window. He looked out at the city for a moment, the skyscrapers, the streets below. Then he closed his eyes. He thought of his parents, of his worker father who had taught him Latin in the evening, of his teacher mother who had made him recite Japanese between meals. He thought about prison, about those long years of injustice, of solitude, of night studies behind bars, and of the books he had read to keep from becoming bitter. He thought about how far he had come, the dust he had swept away, the contemptuous looks he had endured without ever letting bitterness grow within him. He had never shouted his worth. He had embodied it, day after day, patiently, silently. And on that day, finally, the world saw what it had always been. A worthy man, a complete man, a free man.